The neighborhood was quiet enough that you could hear someone close a car door from 3 streets away. That specific quiet that comes from intentional design. Houses spaced just right, trees positioned to absorb sound. You could track your neighbor's routines by sound alone. The Hendersons' garage at 7:15, the Chen's dog barking at 2:30. That was one of the reasons I moved there. No traffic noise, no sirens at 3 a.m., just rows of identical houses with identical shutters and porch lights that clicked on at sunset. It felt safe in a way that was almost boring. Until I realized the quiet wasn't natural. I had been living there for about 3 months when I first noticed it. Every night, right around the same time, the neighborhood would go completely still. Completely still. No dogs barking, no TV noise, no passing cars, no wind. Just silence so clean it felt intentional. At first I chalked it up to coincidence. People go to sleep. But this was different. It happened too suddenly, too precisely. 1 minute I'd hear ambient life. The next it was like someone flipped a switch. I started checking the clock. Almost always just after 11:30. Never earlier than 11:28. Never later than 11:35. A specific window of time when the neighborhood stopped being real. I didn't tell anyone. Didn't want to sound paranoid, didn't want to be that person who moves to suburbia and immediately starts seeing conspiracies in trimmed hedges. Besides, everything else was normal. Neighbors waved, kids played outside during the day, riding bikes. Packages never went missing. It was fine, except for that window of silence. Then I noticed the walking. From my living room window I could see most of the street. Late one night, during that silent window, I saw someone walking slowly down the sidewalk. Not jogging, not walking a dog. Just walking. They stayed under the streetlights, moving from pool to pool. I watched them pass one house, then the next. I waited for them to turn into a driveway. They didn't. They walked out of view and never came back. The next night, it happened again. Same slow walk, different person. After a week of watching, I realized something. They never walked both directions. I only ever saw them moving away from my end of the street, heading deeper into the neighborhood. Never toward the main road. Never leaving. The first truly unsettling moment came when I decided to step outside during the silence. I don't know why I did it. Curiosity, maybe. The stupid confidence that comes from thinking nothing bad ever happens in places like this. I stood on my porch at 11:32, checked my watch twice. The quiet already settled in like fog. The porch light buzzed faintly above me, obscenely loud in the absence of everything else. I listened, straining to hear anything. Nothing. Not even wind. Not even the distant highway that should have been audible. Just void. Just absence. I took a few steps down the driveway. The sound felt too loud, wrong, like I was breaking some rule, violating some agreement I'd signed without reading. That's when I noticed the porch lights. Every house on the street had theirs on. All of them, every single one, glowing with identical warm light, perfectly timed. No flickering, no bulbs dying, no motion sensors triggering, just on. All of them, simultaneously. I counted them. 17 houses visible from where I stood, 17 identical porch lights burning with the same wattage, the same unwavering intensity. I don't know why that bothered me so much, but it did. It felt staged, theatrical, like a set designed to look like a neighborhood rather than an actual place where people lived. I went back inside, locked the door, checked it twice. A few nights later, I heard knocking. It was soft, slow. 3 knocks, evenly spaced. Tap, tap, tap. I froze on the couch. I checked the time, 11:34. I didn't move, just sat there listening. The knocking came again. Same rhythm, same calm patience. Tap, tap, tap. Like whoever was out there had all the time in the world. I crept toward the front window and peeked through the blinds. No one was there. The porch was empty. The street empty. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the doorbell camera feed. The recording showed my porch empty. No motion detected. No recording of the knock I'd heard clearly. The next morning, I checked the front door. There was something small near the base. Footprints. Not muddy, not wet. Just faint impressions in the dust. Like someone had stood there for a while and shifted their weight. Back and forth. They faced the door. Perfectly aligned. Toes pointing at the threshold. Close enough that whoever made them would have been breathing on the wood. That night, the walking started again. This time, the person stopped. They stood under the streetlight directly across from my house. They didn't look at their phone. Didn't check a watch. They just stood there, facing my direction, head tilted slightly like they were listening. I turned off my lights immediately and watched from the dark. They stayed for a long time, long enough that my legs started to ache from standing frozen, long enough that I started to doubt they were human. Then, without warning, they raised their hand. Not a wave, not a gesture of greeting. More like they were counting something on their fingers. Deliberate, methodical. 1, 2, 3. Then they lowered their hand and continued walking, disappearing down the street. I didn't sleep that night. Sat on the couch until dawn. The disturbing detail that still makes my skin crawl happened a few days later. I was checking my mail when I noticed a folded piece of paper tucked inside my mailbox. Not in the normal stack. Tucked in the corner. No stamp, no envelope, no address. Just a single sentence written neatly in blue pen. Your lights stay on too long. My hand started shaking. I looked around, but the street was empty. Midday. Normal. I didn't tell the police. What would I say? Someone left me a note about my lights? Instead, I started turning my lights off earlier. Much earlier. As soon as the sun set, I'd kill the porch light. Sit in the dark. The knocking stopped. The walking continued. Every night, someone new. Same slow pace. Same silence. Same journey deeper into the development. I moved out 6 months later. Broke my lease. Lost my deposit. On my last night there, I sat in my empty living room, watching the clock tick toward 11:30. The silence came right on time. Then from the corner of the room, I heard a soft sound. 3 slow knocks. Tap, tap, tap. Not on the door, on the inside wall, directly behind where I was sitting. From inside my house. I ran. Didn't look back. Didn't lock the door, just ran to my car and drove. The real estate agent never asked why I insisted on leaving the porch light on when I handed over the keys. She just smiled. The same small, practiced smile everyone in the neighborhood used. They'll appreciate that, she said quietly. She paused at her car and added without looking at me, "They always count how long it stays on." I never went back. The house still has it on every night. I checked last week, pulled up Street View, then drove by because I had to know. Burning bright, identical to 17 others. From 3 streets away, I could hear it humming. and under the streetlight across from my old house, someone was standing, perfectly still, counting. The neighborhood I lived in barely showed up on maps. One of those places tucked behind a main road, hidden by trees, looping streets that all looked the same. People moved there because nothing ever happened. I worked late most nights coming home after dark. The neighborhood was always calm when I pulled in. Too calm. Then I noticed the man across the street. He would stand in his driveway, completely still, facing his garage door. No phone, no car running. Just standing there, hands at his sides, rigid. The first night I saw him, I assumed he was waiting for someone. By the third night, I realized something was off. He was always there when I got home, always around 10:47 p.m. I started checking the time, glancing at the dashboard clock as I turned onto the street. It lined up too perfectly to be coincidence, too exact. Like he was tracking me, like he knew my schedule better than I did. I mentioned it to my partner one night, trying to sound casual. "Have you noticed the guy across the street?" They looked up from their phone. "Which guy?" "The one who's always standing in his driveway." They frowned. "There's only one person who lives there." "Exactly. Him." "No." They shook their head. "That house has been empty since we moved in. 6 months. No one's lived there." That sat wrong in my chest. The next night, I parked farther down the street so I could watch without being obvious, without him knowing I was observing. The man appeared as usual, materialized almost, like he hadn't walked there but had simply become present. Same posture, same stillness. I tried to get a better look at his face, leaning forward against my seatbelt. But the porch light never quite reached it. The glow stopped just short, leaving his features in shadow, like the light avoided him on purpose. One night I worked later than usual, didn't get home until after midnight. I felt relief when I turned the corner and didn't see him. His driveway was empty, dark. The relief didn't last. As I walked up my driveway, I realized something was wrong. The street was silent. That same deliberate absence of sound, but worse now, heavier. Every porch light was on. Every single one. Houses that had been dark for months suddenly glowing, including mine. I stood there and noticed something on the concrete. Footprints. A set of footprints leading from the empty house across the street, crossing the road, approaching my driveway. They stopped at my front door, right at the threshold, toes pointing at the wood. I went inside, moving too fast, fumbling with locks, locked everything, checked them twice. The next night, he wasn't in his driveway. He was on my lawn, standing just beyond the reach of my porch light, right at that edge where illumination faded to shadow. I didn't confront him. I turned off the lights immediately and watched from the hallway window. He stood there for nearly 20 minutes. I timed it. He didn't move, didn't shift weight, didn't seem to breathe. Then he lifted his head slightly, tilting it like he was listening. I heard it a second later. Soft knocking. Not on the front door where he was facing. On the side of the house, the wall that should have been inaccessible. 3 knocks, evenly spaced, tap, tap, tap. I stayed frozen until it stopped. The next morning, I walked across the street for the first time. The house looked abandoned up close. Dust thick on the windows. No mail, no tire tracks. But near the garage, I noticed something. A porch light. On, glowing, still warm when I reached up to touch it. I moved 2 weeks later. Broke my lease. I still check driveways when I get home late, scanning shadows, looking for that particular stillness. And sometimes when I pull into a quiet street, anywhere, I see someone standing still under a porch light, standing in that same posture, watching, counting, waiting for 10:47. The moving company driver took the envelope with the key, glanced inside, then gave me the same small, polite smile I'd seen on every neighbor. "He already knows you're gone," the driver said quietly. My body went cold. "What?" He paused and added without emotion, "But he said to tell you the light will stay on until you come back for it." He drove away without explaining. I never went back, but last week, on a different block entirely, different city, different state, I saw a porch light flicker on at exactly 10:47 p.m. It wasn't mine. I don't even live on that street. But the light turned on anyway, and in the driveway below it, someone stood perfectly still, facing my direction, waiting. I know that it doesn't matter where I go. He's already there. And every night at 10:47 somewhere, a porch light turns on. Just for me. The street I lived on was so quiet that people used it as a shortcut. Commuters cutting through, delivery drivers shaving minutes off routes. No traffic lights, no speed bumps. Just a clean road lined with houses. At night, it felt empty in a comforting way. It started with the sound of walking. Late at night, after midnight, I'd hear footsteps outside my bedroom window. Slow, even, measured, never rushing. I assumed it was a neighbor walking their dog. Then I realized something. There were never any voices, no leash jingling, no dog tags, just footsteps. I finally got up one night and peeked through the blinds. The sidewalk was empty. The footsteps continued, close enough that I should have seen whoever was making them. Then they stopped, abruptly. I didn't sleep after that. The next night, it happened again. Same time, I checked my phone. 12:11 a.m. exactly. Same pacing. Same invisible movement. This time, I watched the street instead of the sidewalk. That's when I noticed the houses. None of them had lights on. Not one. Not the usual scattering of bathroom lights or kitchen lights or TVs glowing through curtains. Every house on the street sat dark and silent, like they'd all been abandoned simultaneously. I checked my phone again. 12:11 a.m. Too early for everyone to be asleep. Too convenient for everyone's lights to be off. Too synchronized. The footsteps grew louder, closer to my window, the sound intensifying until it felt like they were right there. Then they passed and continued down the street. Still nothing visible. The disturbing detail came a few nights later. I heard the footsteps approach, but this time they didn't pass. They stopped, directly outside my window. Then I heard breathing. Slow, controlled, deliberate. Right on the other side of the glass. So close. I didn't move, couldn't breathe. Every cell screaming at me to stay still. After a long moment, the footsteps resumed, moving away. The next morning I walked outside to check. There were footprints in the dust beneath my window. They were facing the house, not walking past, standing. The kind of prints you make when you stop and stay for a while. Close enough to breathe on the glass. I moved out shortly after. Just packed and left, drove away, and didn't look back. But sometimes when I drive past late at night, I swear I can hear footsteps keeping pace with my car. Step, 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 matching my speed perfectly. The landlord smiled when he collected the keys, the same empty expression I'd seen on neighbors. "They like to watch the dust settle," he said quietly. "What?" He paused and added, "Said it helps them remember where to stand." I never drove down that street again. But last night, on a completely different road, I heard the footsteps again. I was driving home, windows cracked slightly, and beneath the music, I heard them. Step, 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 step. They matched my speed perfectly. Then I checked the rearview mirror. The dust on the back window had a fresh set of prints. Handprints, pressed against the glass from the inside, facing inward, watching me. I pulled over, checked the back seat. Empty. The prints were already fading. But I could still hear the breathing. Right behind me, I don't drive at night anymore. But sometimes, lying in bed in my new apartment on the 3rd floor, I hear them. Step, 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 step. Pacing outside, stopping, breathing. And I know the blinds are exactly how it wants them. Half open, just enough to watch the dust settle.